Kamiho pushed his cleaning cart down the empty corridor at 3 in the morning. The wheels squeaked softly in the silence. He had been working this shift for 8 years now, and he knew every corner of the Celestial Archive station. At 47 years old, Miho was content with his simple life. He mopped floors while alien researchers slept. He listened to audiobooks. He sent money back to Earth. It was quiet work, and that suited him just fine. The station was massive, floating in the empty space between galaxies. Inside its walls were treasures from dead civilizations. There were broken pots from the Calathi Empire. There were ancient weapons from the Tharn dynasty. And now, in the newest wing, there were temples from something called the Precursor War. Miho did not care much about ancient history. He cared about doing his job well. His father had been a temple keeper in Busan, back on Earth. His father taught him that cleaning was not just making things look nice. It was about respect. It was about taking care of spaces properly. The alien researchers who worked on the station barely noticed Miho. The tall Zelthri with their crystal-like skin walked past him without looking. The amphibious Calathi with their gill slits ignored him completely. To them, Miho was part of the background, like the air system or the lights. That was fine with Miho. He preferred being invisible. Tonight, his supervisor had left him a message. There was a new excavation in Sector 7 that needed cleaning. The head researcher, an arrogant Zelthri named Kivrin, had been bragging about it all week. He called it the Temple of Eternal Vigil. He said it would change everything they knew about the precursors. Miho had heard such claims before. Every artifact was supposedly revolutionary. Then it ended up in storage, gathering dust. He wheeled his cart to Sector 7 and stopped at the temple entrance. The doors were open. The quarantine seals were disabled. Miho frowned. That was against protocol. New artifacts were supposed to stay sealed until they were fully studied. But researchers never followed the rules. They were too excited about their discoveries. He checked his tablet. The temple was marked as pending final analysis, which meant it was technically cleared for cleaning. If he did not clean it now, Kivrin would complain tomorrow about contamination. Miho entered the temple chamber. It was beautiful, he had to admit. The walls were covered in flowing symbols that seemed to move when you looked away. The floor was a huge mosaic made of geometric patterns. Right now, it was covered in dust and footprints from the excavation team. All right, Miho said to his cleaning robot. He had nicknamed it such years ago. Let us do this properly. He mixed his standard cleaning solution. It was the same formula he had used for 8 years. Purified water, gentle surfactants, and trace minerals to prevent static buildup. The solution was approved for use on all known materials, including ancient artifacts. Miho had always been thorough. His father taught him the right way to clean a temple floor. You started in the far corner. You worked in overlapping strokes. You made sure you did not miss any spots. It was not glamorous work, but it was important work. He dipped his mop into the bucket and began. The mop moved across the ancient floor in smooth, efficient patterns. Horizontal passes first, then diagonal, then vertical. The same technique his father had taught him decades ago. The symbols on the floor seemed to drink in the moisture. They began to glow very faintly. Miho paused. That was unusual. He had cleaned hundreds of artifacts before. None of them had ever glowed. He continued mopping. The glow grew brighter. The symbols on the floor suddenly blazed with brilliant blue-white light. Lines of energy raced outward from where Miho stood, connecting the geometric patterns in a cascading web. The walls began to pulse with the same light. The entire temple chamber lit up like a star. "Oh no," Miho whispered. A wave of energy exploded outward from the temple. It passed through the walls, through the station hull, through Miho himself. It did not hurt. It felt strange, like being scanned or measured or recognized. Then everything went dark, and Miho collapsed to the floor. Alarms screamed throughout the station. In the command center, Director Velrin's tentacles tensed as warnings flashed across every screen. "Energy spike detected in Sector 7, a technician shouted. "Sir, we are reading spatial distortions across 3 galaxies." on the long-range sensors. Tiny lights began appearing across known space. Each light was a ship, a massive, ancient warship that had been dormant for 10,000 years. The precursor armada was waking up, and in the temple, unconscious on the floor he had just mopped, Khan Miho had no idea what he had done. Miho woke up in the medical bay with the worst headache of his life. A Calathi doctor stood over him, checking holographic displays that showed his vital signs. "Mr. Khan, you are awake," the doctor said. "How do you feel?" "Like I got hit by a ship," Miho groaned. "What happened?" "That is complicated. You are under armed guard. The Galactic Council wants to speak with you immediately." "Guard? Why do I need a guard? I was just cleaning." Before the doctor could answer, security officers entered and escorted Miho to an interrogation room. It was cold and sterile. Around a metal table sat some of the most important beings in the galaxy: military officers, scientists, and one admiral whose scales kept changing from red to dark purple. Miho sat down, still wearing his stained coveralls. Everyone stared at him like he was a bomb about to explode. "Tell us again," demanded Admiral Drakner, the purple scale Tharn. "Exactly what you did in the temple." "For the 5th time," Miho said tiredly, "I mopped the floor. That is it. I used my normal cleaning solution and followed my normal pattern." "Your normal pattern," interrupted a Calathi intelligence officer named Surin. "Describe this pattern in detail." Miho sighed. "I start in the far corner. I work across in overlapping strokes. Horizontal passes first, then diagonal, then vertical. It is the most efficient way to clean without missing spots." "Show us." Surin pushed the tablet across the table. "Draw it." Miho took the stylus and sketched his mopping pattern on the screen. As he drew, several aliens exchanged worried looks. Dr. Hira, a silver-haired Calathi scientist, pulled up a holographic image beside Miho's drawing. "This is the ritual of calling. It is described in ancient precursor texts. Their high priest performed the ceremony to activate the armada during times of great danger." The hologram showed a robed figure moving across a temple floor in an elaborate dance. The pattern was identical to what Miho had just drawn. "That is just how my father taught me to clean," Miho said weakly. He was a temple keeper in Korea. He said this was the best way to cover the whole floor. "Where exactly was your father from?" Hira asked. "Busan, South Korea." "Earth." Hira pulled up more data on her screen. "The cleaning solution you used. What was in it?" "Just standard station supplies. Purified water, surfactants, some trace minerals. Nothing special." "Show me the exact composition." Miho found the specification sheet on his tablet and shared it. Hira studied the chemical formula, then went very still. "This is identical," she said quietly, "to the sacred oils the precursors use in their rituals, down to the molecular level." Admiral Drakner slammed his fist on the table. "This is absurd. You expect us to believe this janitor accidentally performed an ancient ritual perfectly? The timing, the pattern, the materials, all by pure chance." "Not by chance," Hira said. She pulled up a new display showing 2 DNA sequences side by side. "I analyzed Mr. Kang's genetic code. Humans share 97% genetic compatibility with the precursors. That is higher than any other known species in the galaxy." The room fell completely silent. "How is that possible?" someone whispered. "The precursors seeded many worlds across the galaxy," Hira explained. "Most of those experiments failed or evolved in unexpected directions. But Earth was different. Earth was a sleeper world, a control group meant to develop naturally until the right moment arrived." "What right moment?" Miho asked, his voice cracking. "Until the herald was needed," Hira said gently. She turned to face him. "The temple's bioscanners recognized you as precursor descended. When you performed the ritual, even accidentally, the system accepted you as legitimate. You are, genetically speaking, the closest thing to a living precursor." "No," Miho said. "No, this is crazy. I am not a herald. I am a janitor. I mop floors. I listen to audiobooks. The most complicated thing I command is a cleaning robot. And yet," Hera said softly. 50,000 warships say otherwise. Admiral Drakner stood abruptly. This is unacceptable. We cannot allow one untrained human to control weapons that could destroy entire star systems. The ships will not respond to anyone else, Hera said. I have studied the precursor protocols. The Armada recognizes only the Herald. Any attempt to override the system will cause all the ships to self-destruct. Then we eliminate the Herald and find another way. There is no other way. Hera's voice rose. And there is no time. The Devouring has returned. She pulled up a star map. At the edge of the galaxy, there was darkness, not empty space, but actual void where stars had simply stopped existing. What is that? Miho whispered. It is the reason the precursors built the Armada, Hera said. An entropy wave that unravels matter itself. 10,000 years ago, the precursors fought it and pushed it beyond the galactic rim, but they knew it would come back eventually. They created the Armada and the Herald Protocol to protect the galaxy when it returned. How long do we have? Director Velrin asked quietly. At current speed, the Devouring will reach the core worlds in 90 days. It will reach Earth in 105 days. Miho stared at the spreading darkness on the map. His daughter Jisa was on Earth. His ex-wife, everyone he had ever known. The Armada will not activate without Herald commands, Hera continued. Only Miho can access their full capabilities. Without him, we have no defense against the Devouring. So my choices are command an alien war fleet or watch the galaxy die. Miho asked. Yes, Hera said simply. Miho put his head in his hands. He thought about his father, the temple keeper, who had taught him that cleaning was noble work, that taking care of spaces, maintaining order, was important even if no one noticed. This was just a much bigger mess to clean up. All right, he said finally. I will do it, but I am doing this my way. I do not know military strategy. I am a janitor. I solve problems by understanding systems and being thorough. That, said a new voice, is exactly why you were chosen. A hologram appeared above the table. It showed a humanoid figure made of light. I am Bastion, guardian of the Eternal Sentinel. We have waited 10,000 years for you, Herald. The Armada is yours to command. The flagship Eternal Sentinel was like nothing Miho had ever seen. The corridors looked like frozen water, made of metal. The walls seemed to breathe and shift. Everywhere he looked, strange symbols glowed softly. The symbols were precursor script, and somehow Miho could read them now. It was as if someone had uploaded new software into his brain without asking. Your quarters, Herald, Bastion announced. A door opened in front of them. Miho stepped inside and stopped. The room was huge, maybe 100 square meters. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the stars outside. Furniture grew from the floor like sculptures, perfectly shaped for a human body. This is too much, Miho muttered. I just need a bed and a desk. You are the Herald. This vessel is yours to command. About that, Miho said, turning to face Bastion's holographic form. Can we drop the Herald thing? Just call me Miho, or Mr. Kong, if he must be formal. Bastion tilted its head, which looked strange for a being made of light. As you wish, Miho. Over the next several hours, officers briefed Miho on the Armada, 50,000 ships of various sizes, each one powered by technology that made modern reactors look like toys, each one capable of destroying planets. This is insane, Miho said, staring at the holographic fleet display. I cannot command all this. You do not have to command all of it, Dr. Hira said. The Calathi scientists have been allowed aboard as part of Miho's advisory team. The ships have artificial intelligence that handles tactical decisions. You provide strategic direction. Strategic direction? I clean floors for a living. And you are excellent at it, Hira said patiently. You understand systems, patterns, efficiency. Those skills apply to fleet management, too. Admiral Park Jaiwan nodded in agreement. She was a human fleet commander who had arrived from Earth. She was in her 50s with short gray hair and tired eyes. Unlike the other officers, she did not treat Miho like he was crazy. She just treated him like someone with a difficult job to do. How would you approach this? Miho asked her, Park pulled up the star map, showing the devouring. Traditional military response would be direct attack. Throw everything at the enemy and overwhelm it. But according to precursor records, that does not work. The devouring is not an enemy you can shoot. It is a phenomenon. Like trying to punch a wave, Miho said. Exactly. So instead of fighting it directly, we need containment, deflection, buying time for evacuation. Miho studied the spreading void on the map. The precursors pushed it back once. How? Bastion brought up ancient battle recordings. The original Herald coordinated a shield grid defense. Thousands of ships working in perfect geometric formation, creating a barrier the devouring could not penetrate. A barrier, Miho murmured. He thought about cleaning, about overlapping strokes that left no gaps. Show me the pattern they used. The hologram displayed the old fleet formation. Miho stared at it, his mind automatically analyzing geometry. This is inefficient. There are gaps here and here. If I were designing this... He reached out and manipulated the hologram. His years of thinking about coverage patterns, about cleaning floors without missing spots, translated naturally into fleet positioning. He moved ships around, adjusted distances, created overlapping fields. There, he said. Better coverage with fewer ships. Admiral Park studied his design, her eyes widening. Miho, this is brilliant. You increase the shield area by 30% while using less power. It is just basic geometry, Miho said, embarrassed. Basic geometry that our best tacticians missed, Hira said softly. The first test came quickly. A colony world called Theta-7 lay in the devouring's path. 4 million people lived there, mostly Zelthri and Calathi. They had 36 hours before the entropy wave arrived. We need to evacuate them, Miho said immediately. Admiral Drakner, watching via hologram, scowled. Evacuation will take days. We do not have days. Then we buy time. Miho turned to Bastion. Can the shield grid hold against the devouring? Unknown, Miho. Probability of success is 63%. Good enough. How many ships do we need? 200 vessels could maintain a defensive grid around Theta-7 for approximately 36 hours. Then that is what we do. Miho pulled up the fleet display. I will design the pattern. Admiral Park, can you coordinate evacuation? Already on it, Park said, working at her console. Miho, Drakner said angrily, you are risking 200 irreplaceable ships on a 63% chance. There are 4 million people down there, Miho shot back. I am not leaving them to die because the odds are not perfect. You are not a military commander. You do not understand acceptable losses. You are right. I do not understand acceptable losses, and I am glad I do not. Miho turned away. Bastion, send the orders. We are saving those people. 200 precursor warships moved to Theta-7. They positioned themselves according to Miho's geometric pattern, creating a web of energy fields around the colony world, a shimmering barrier of light against the coming darkness. Then the devouring arrived. It was not dramatic. There was no explosion. Just an advancing line where stars stopped being stars, where space forgot how to hold matter together. The shield grid met the entropy wave and reality screamed. Shield strength at 70%, Hira reported. 65, 60. How is evacuation? Miho asked. Transport ships loading now, Admiral Park said. 1,200 vessels inbound. 28 hours to complete evacuation. 28 hours. They needed to hold for 28 hours. Shields at 55%. 50. Miho studied the pattern, looking for weak points. Bastion, shift ships 42 and 43. Redistribute the load. The pattern adjusted. Shield strength stabilized. For 34 hours, Miho did not sleep. He stood at the console, making constant adjustments, shifting ships to compensate for a power drain, rotating vessels to distribute stress. It was like mopping a floor in a windstorm. You had to stay ahead of the mess. 3 ships failed, their shields collapsing. The crews evacuated, but the ships were consumed by entropy. Finally, the last transport lifted off from Theta-7. All civilians evacuated, Park reported. 4,300,000 saved. Pull the fleet back, Miho ordered. The ships disengaged and jumped to safety. Moments later, the devouring swept over Theta 7. The planet simply stopped existing. Miho stared at the empty space. They had saved the people, but an entire world was gone. You performed admirably, Bastion said. We lost 3 ships, an entire planet. And saved 4 million lives, Hera said gently. 4 million people will see tomorrow because of you. That night, Miho sat alone by the observation window. He thought about his daughter Jisoo back on Earth. He had not spoken to her in 3 years, not since the divorce. He recorded a message. Hey, Jisoo, it is Dad. I know we have not talked in a long time. You probably saw the news about your dad, the janitor saving the galaxy. It is complicated. His voice cracked. I am not a hero. I am just trying to clean up a mess. But I wanted you to know I am thinking about you, about Earth. I am going to do everything I can to protect you. The war room of the Eternal Sentinel was filled with holographic displays. They showed the Devourings advance across the galaxy. Each red zone represented space that had been consumed. Stars, planets, and reality itself had been unraveled there. The red zones were spreading faster now. It is accelerating, Dr. Hira said, her voice tight with worry. The expansion rate has increased by 30% in the last week. Miho studied the projections. At this speed, the devouring would reach the core worlds, including Earth, in 60 days instead of 90. Around the conference table, representatives from a dozen species argued about evacuation routes and resources. The Galactic Council had split into factions. Some wanted to flee to another galaxy. Some wanted to make a final stand. Others simply blamed Miho for everything. Order. Admiral Park slammed her hand on the table. We are wasting time. Miho, what is the plan? Everyone looked at him. Miho, still wearing his modified coveralls because they were more comfortable than any uniform, stared at the star map. We keep doing what we have been doing, he said. Fighting retreat. Establish shield grid waypoints. By time for evacuations, fall back, repeat. That is just delaying the inevitable, Admiral Drakner growled. We have evacuated 40 billion people, but there are trillions more in the path of this thing. We do not have enough ships or time. So what do you suggest? Miho asked tiredly. Give up? I suggest we focus on saving those we can save. The core worlds, the major population centers. Let the frontier colonies fend for themselves. No. Miho's voice was flat. We do not abandon anyone. You are not a military commander. You do not understand triage. I understand that every person matters. I am not leaving anyone behind. The argument turned into shouting. Miho felt a headache building. He had been awake for 36 hours straight, coordinating evacuation efforts while trying to slow the Devouring's advance. They were losing. Not quickly, but steadily. Each battle cost them ships, energy, and time, and the Devouring kept coming. Miho, Bastion said privately through his comm device, you need rest. Your cognitive function has decreased by 18%. I will rest when this is over. If you collapse from exhaustion, it will be over much sooner. Miho hated that the AI was right. Fine. For hours. Wake me if anything urgent happens. He stood to leave, but Hira caught his arm. Miho, wait. I need to show you something important. Hira led him to the ship's archive chamber, a circular room lined with glowing data crystals. She pulled up files on the main display. I have been studying all the precursor records, she said. Everything about the original war against the Devouring. And I found something. The display showed ancient battle footage. Precursor ships fighting the entropy wave 10,000 years ago. We know they pushed it back, Miho said, but they could not destroy it. Right, but look at this. Hira zoomed in on a particular section. 300 years before the precursors disappeared, they sent an expedition to study the Devouring at its source. Most of the fleet was lost, but one ship returned with data. A new image appeared, a massive structure floating in the void, half phased out of normal reality. What is that? This is where the Devouring originated. The precursors believed it was not natural. It was an experiment, an ancient civilization, even older than precursors, tried to harness entropy as a power source. The experiment failed catastrophically. Miho stared at the alien station. And this thing is still running? Yes. The builders either died or fled, but the mechanism keeps operating. It has been generating entropy waves for hundreds of thousands of years. Can it be shut down? In theory, yes. The precursors found a control center, but could not reach it. The entropy field is too intense. Any ship approaching will be torn apart. Miho's mind raced. But if we could shut it down at the source, the devouring would stop. Not just slow down, actually stop. Hira's expression was grave. But Miho, the station is at the heart of the phenomenon. Nothing can survive there. The shield grid survived at Theta 7. For 36 hours at the edge of the devouring, the conditions at the core are exponentially worse. Even the full armada could not maintain shields long enough. How long would we need? Hira ran calculations. 6 hours. 6 hours to cross the entropy field, locate the control center, and shut it down. It would require the combined power of every ship in the armada to create a stable corridor, leaving the rest of the galaxy defenseless. Yes. Miho sat down heavily. So, it is a gamble. Use everything on one desperate strike that might fail, or keep fighting the slow retreat until we run out of time anyway. That is the choice. For a long moment, Miho was silent. He thought about his father, who always said the hardest messes require the most courage to clean. You cannot be afraid to commit fully to the job. If we do this, he said slowly, someone has to go to the station. Someone has to manually shut it down. Yes, the entropy field will disrupt remote systems. It has to be done in person. And whoever goes will not come back. Hira finished quietly. The entropy field will consume them. Miho looked at the holographic image of the ancient station. A suicide mission. Send the entire armada to create a corridor, leave the galaxy undefended, and send people to their deaths. All on the chance it might work. But if they did nothing, everyone would die anyway. I need to think about this, Miho said. Give me those 4 hours. But he knew he would not sleep. He would lie in his quarters staring at the ceiling, thinking about his daughter Jisoo on Earth, thinking about the 4 million people they had saved at Theta 7, thinking about the trillions more who depended on him making the right choice. He was a janitor. He cleaned up messes. But this mess might cost him everything. Later that night, Miho sat by the observation window. Admiral Park found him there. You are thinking about the suicide run, she said, sitting beside him. How did you know? Because I have been thinking about it too. It is a terrible plan. It is also our only plan. I cannot ask people to die for this. You do not have to ask. If you decide to do it, volunteers will line up. Park looked out at the stars. People want to fight for something that matters. They want their deaths to mean something. What if it fails? What if we sacrifice everything and it does not work? Then we fail trying our best. That is better than dying slowly while doing nothing. Miho thought about his mopping pattern. You had to commit to the strokes. Hesitation left streaks and gaps. All right, he said finally. We do it. We make the run. When? Soon, before I lose my nerve. He looked at Park. I am going to the station myself. Miho, I have to. I am the herald. If anyone should take this risk, it should be me. Park was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. You are braver than you think, janitor. I am not brave. I am just tired of running away from hard things. They sat together watching the void, preparing for the gamble that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The Eternal Sentinel moved to the corridor of shields like a ship sailing through a tunnel of light. Around it, 49,999 other precursor warships held formation, channeling all their power into maintaining the passage through the entropy field. Miho stood at the command console, watching reality tear itself apart outside the shields. Space did not look like space anymore. It looked like a painting that someone had started to erase. Colors that should not exist swirled in patterns that hurt to look at. Corridor stability at 70%. Hira reported from her station. She had insisted on coming. So had Admiral Park. so had a team of engineers and scientists, all volunteers. How much longer? Miho asked. 4 hours to reach the station. Maybe less if we can increase speed. For hours. Behind them, the rest of the galaxy waited with no defense. If this failed, the devouring would sweep through unimpeded. Trillions would die. No pressure, Miho thought bitterly. Bastion, he said to the AI. Tell me about the control mechanism again. The entropy generator is located at the station's core, Bastion explained. You must reach the central chamber and manually initiate the shutdown sequence. The process will take approximately 11 minutes. And the entropy field inside the station? Intense. Your suit will protect you for perhaps 15 minutes. After that, Bastion paused. After that, the field will begin to unravel your molecular structure. So, he would have 4 minutes of safety margin. For minutes to find his way out after shutting down the generator. It was not much, but it was something. The corridor shuddered. Warning lights flashed across the console. Stability dropping to 60%, Hera said. The Armada is straining. They cannot hold this much longer. We are almost there, Admiral Park said, checking the navigation display. 30 minutes out. Those 30 minutes felt like hours. The ship shook constantly as the entropy field pushed against their shields. Miho watched the stability percentage drop slowly. 55%, 50%, 48%. There, an engineer pointed at the main screen. Through the chaos of unraveling space, a massive structure appeared. The ancient station was impossibly huge, larger than most moons. Parts of it flickered in and out of existence, phasing between dimensions. It looked wrong, like something that should not exist. Taking us in, Admiral Park said, her hand steady on the controls. The Eternal Sentinel docked with a section of the station that seemed stable. Or at least, as stable as anything could be in this place. Miho put on his protective suit. It was precursor technology, designed to resist entropy fields. The helmet sealed with a hiss. I am coming with you, Hera said, already in her own suit. No, if something happens to me, someone needs to complete the mission. That is exactly why I am coming. 2 people have a better chance than 1. Miho wanted to argue, but she was right. He nodded. Admiral Park clasped his shoulder. Good luck, Janitor. Go clean up this mess. Miho and Hera entered the station through the airlock. Inside, the corridor was like a nightmare. The walls pulsed and shifted. Gravity changed direction randomly. They could see other corridors through the walls, as if multiple versions of the station existed in the same space. Follow the signal, Bastion said through their comms. I am guiding you to the core. They moved carefully through the impossible geometry. Time felt strange here. Sometimes a step took seconds. Sometimes it took minutes. Miho's suit alarms beeped constantly, warning about entropy exposure. How are you holding up? He asked Hera. Terrified but functional, she replied. You. Same. They reached the central chamber after what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. The entropy generator filled the space, a massive sphere of swirling darkness and light. It hummed with power that made Miho's teeth ache. There, Hera pointed. The control panel. They approached the panel. It was covered in symbols that Miho could read thanks to his precursor genetics. The shutdown sequence was complex but logical, like following a complicated cleaning checklist. Beginning shutdown, Miho said, working the controls. The generator's hum changed pitch. The swirling chaos inside the sphere began to slow. Then alarm screamed. The entropy field is spiking. Hera shouted. The shutdown is destabilizing local space. The chamber began to tear apart. Sections of floor disappeared into void. The walls rippled like water. Keep going, Hera said. You have to finish. Miho's hands moved across the controls, following the sequence. Step by step, like mopping a floor. Do not miss any spots. Do not hesitate. Outside the station, the devouring began to collapse. The entropy wave reversed, space reasserting itself across 3 galaxies. Stars that had been disappearing started to stabilize. It is working. Admiral Park reported from the ship. The devouring is stopping. In the chamber, Miho entered the final command. The generator powered down with a sound like a dying breath. The sphere of chaos dissolved into nothing. Done, Miho said. Let's get out of here. But the chamber was falling apart faster now. The floor beneath them cracked and dissolved. Run! Hira grabbed his arm. They ran through corridors that were disintegrating around them. Behind them, the station began to collapse, its purpose fulfilled. Bastion! Miho shouted into his comm, we need extraction now. The airlock is gone, Bastion reported. But I am reading your position. Stand by. Stand by for what? The wall beside them exploded inward, not from damage, but from a precisely controlled breach. The Eternal Sentinel had literally punched through the station's hull. Jump! Admiral Park's voice commanded. Miho and Hira leaped through the breach. Precursor teleportation technology caught them mid-jump and deposited them on the ship's deck. Go! Miho shouted. Get us out! The Eternal Sentinel pulled away as the ancient station finally collapsed into nothingness. The corridor of shields dissolved as the Armada ceased channeling power. For a moment, space was silent. Then cheers erupted across every comm channel in the galaxy. The devouring has stopped, Hira said, reading the sensor data with tears in her eyes. It has actually stopped. Stars are stable. The entropy wave is gone. Miho collapsed against the wall, exhausted. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had actually done it. 3 weeks later, Miho stood on Earth for the first time in 8 years. The Galactic Council had offered him medals, titles, wealth. He had refused everything except one request. He wanted to go home. His daughter, Jisoo, waited at the spaceport. She was 23 now, tall and beautiful and crying. Miho walked toward her, this girl he had abandoned when his marriage fell apart, and she threw her arms around him. You saved everyone, Dad, she whispered. I just cleaned up a mess, he said, hugging her tight. That is what janitors do. Later, they sat together at a small restaurant in Busan, near the temple where his father had worked. Jisoo told him about her life, her studies, her dreams. Miho listened, really listened, in a way he had never done when she was young. The end.